The massive warship emerged from hyperspace like a predator breaking through dark waters. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Pride, his forearms crossed behind his scaled back. Through the viewport, a small blue planet rotated slowly, white clouds swirling over its surface. "Earth," he said, tasting the strange word. His subordinates, a mix of different alien species united under the Galactic Council's banner, watched the planet with hungry eyes. "Primitive species, Commander," reported his tactical officer, a thin creature with translucent skin. "They haven't even colonized their own moon properly. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and crude nuclear devices." Zektar's mandibles clicked in amusement. And yet they refused the Council's generous offer of vassalage. Such arrogance from such a young species. The Galactic Council had discovered Earth only 5 solar cycles ago. The blue planet's inhabitants called themselves humans, bipedal creatures with soft skin and no natural weapons. When the Council's ambassadors arrived offering protection in exchange for servitude and resources, the humans did something unprecedented. They said no. "Deploy the 10th Legion," Zektar commanded. 10,000 of our finest warriors should be more than sufficient to subdue this world. I want their leaders captured alive. The rest, make examples of them." Drop pods began launching from the warship's belly, each one carrying a squad of the galaxy's most feared soldiers. The Corvan warriors stood 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in natural armor plating. They had conquered 100 worlds for the Council. Earth would be no different. The first wave hit major cities across the globe: New York, London, Moscow, Beijing. Drop pods crashed through the atmosphere, their heat shields glowing like falling stars. Citizens looked up in terror and wonder as the sky filled with fire. In New York's Times Square, pods smashed into the concrete, leaving craters 20 feet wide. Corvan warriors emerged, plasma rifles ready. They expected panic. They expected humans to flee like prey animals. Instead, they found empty streets. "Where are the primitives?" Squad leader Thok growled into his communicator. His warriors spread out, scanning buildings with thermal sensors. The city seemed deserted. Then they heard it, a single crack, like thunder on a clear day. Thok's head snapped back, green blood spraying from a hole between his eyes. His body crashed to the ground. 8 feet of genetically enhanced warrior felled by a single shot. "Sniper!" another Corvan shouted, diving for cover. But there was no cover from an enemy they couldn't see. Another crack. Another warrior down, the bullet punching through his chest armor like paper. On a rooftop half a mile away, Sarah Chen adjusted her scope. The .50 caliber rifle felt familiar in her hands. An old friend from her tours in Afghanistan. She'd been a Marine sniper then, one of the best. Now she was humanity's first line of defense. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They'd announced their invasion 3 days in advance, demanding Earth's surrender. 3 days was more than enough time for every military on the planet to mobilize, for evacuation plans to empty the cities, for snipers like Sarah to find perfect positions. She squeezed the trigger again. Another alien dropped. The Corvans scrambled for cover, firing their plasma weapons wildly at buildings. The energy beams melted concrete and steel, but they couldn't hit what they couldn't see. Sarah was already moving, following predetermined routes to her next position. Across the city, dozens of other snipers were doing the same. Former military, police marksmen, even civilian hunters who knew their way around a rifle. They'd been given one simple order: make every shot count. In London, retired SAS operative James Mitchell watched through his scope as alien warriors tried to advance down Parliament Street. He'd served Queen and country for 20 years. This was just another day at the office. His rifle spoke, and an alien commander crumpled. The squad scattered, seeking shelter that didn't exist. London's defenders had spent days preparing kill zones, removing cover, creating perfect fields of fire. By the time the sun set on the first day, something unprecedented had happened. Of the 10,000 warriors the Galactic Council had sent to conquer Earth, nearly 1,000 lay dead, and the humans had barely shown themselves. Commander Zektar paced his bridge, fury radiating from every movement. How is this possible? They're using primitive projectile weapons. The humans appear to have extensive experience in asymmetric warfare. His intelligence officer reported nervously. They're not engaging our forces directly. They strike from extreme distances, then relocate before we can respond. Send in the heavy armor, Zektar snarled. Burn their cities to ash if necessary. But Earth's defenders had prepared for that too. In Moscow, as alien tanks rolled down the wide boulevards, they found the streets lined with abandoned vehicles. Hidden among them were improvised explosive devices, some powerful enough to flip a 60-ton war machine. Russian forces had learned hard lessons in Chechnya and Syria. They knew how to make an urban environment hell for any invader. Every building could hide an anti-tank missile team. Every pile of rubble could conceal a mine. In rural Texas, Corvin scouts tried to establish a forward base. They'd chosen what looked like empty farmland, far from any major city. They didn't know that every rancher for 50 miles had grabbed their hunting rifles and headed for the hills. Billy Thompson lay prone in the tall grass, his father's .30-06 steady in his hands. He'd been shooting since he was 8 years old, dropping deer at 300 yards. The aliens were bigger targets and moved predictably. Just like hunting season, he whispered to himself, centering his crosshairs on an alien engineer. The rifle bucked against his shoulder and the alien dropped. Billy was already working the bolt, chambering another round. All across Earth, the story was the same. Humanity had spent its entire history perfecting the art of war. Every major nation had veterans who'd fought in brutal conflicts. Every community had people who knew how to shoot, how to hide, how to survive. The aliens had expected to fight a conventional war against a technologically inferior opponent. Instead, they faced an entire planet of guerrilla fighters who knew their terrain and weren't afraid to die defending it. By the end of the first week, the Galactic Council's casualties had mounted to 3,000. They held no major cities, controlled no strategic resources. Every advance was paid for in blood. But the real shock came when they tried to establish communication with Earth's governments to demand surrender. The response came not from any world leader, but from an anonymous transmission. You wanted to conquer Earth. You brought 10,000 warriors. We have 8 billion humans, and every single one of them is angry. This is our home. We've been killing each other over it for thousands of years. What made you think we wouldn't unite to kill you? In Beijing, Li Wei crouched in the ruins of an office building. She'd been a police sniper before the invasion, trained to take down criminals in hostage situations. Now she hunted bigger prey. Through her scope, she watched an alien patrol moving through the deserted streets. They moved in perfect formation, checking corners, covering each other's backs. It didn't matter. She'd already mapped out their patrol route, knew exactly where they'd be. The lead alien's head exploded in a shower of green. Before his body hit the ground, Li was already moving to her secondary position. Let them waste their plasma fire on empty buildings. She'd be 3 blocks away before they realized where the shot came from. The aliens tried to adapt. They deployed shields, used drones for reconnaissance, moved only at night. But humans had been hunting each other in the dark for millennia. Night vision equipment, thermal scopes, and patient hunters negated every advantage. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal trackers led special forces teams to alien supply caches. In the Amazon, indigenous warriors used blowguns with poisoned darts that paralyzed Corvin nervous systems. In the Swiss Alps, mountain troops triggered avalanches that buried entire alien companies. Commander Zektar received hourly casualty reports, each one worse than the last. His warriors weren't just dying, they were being hunted. The primitive humans had turned their entire planet into a killing field. "Perhaps we should consider orbital bombardment," his weapons officer suggested, "and destroy the resources we came to claim." Zektar's scales flushed with anger. "The Council wants this world intact." But what good was a world they couldn't hold? Every soldier they landed became a target. Every base they established was surrounded by invisible enemies. The humans didn't mass their forces for decisive battles. They bled the invaders drop by drop, shot by shot. The 10th Legion had conquered worlds where the inhabitants had energy weapons and shield technology. They'd never faced an enemy who understood patience, who could lie motionless for hours, waiting for the perfect shot, who considered killing an art form refined over thousands of years of practice. Sarah Chen watched through her scope as another alien patrol entered her kill zone. She'd been living on rooftops for 2 weeks now, moving from building to building, always staying ahead of their search teams. Her tally was up to 47 confirmed kills. She thought about her daughter, evacuated to a shelter in the mountains. She thought about her husband, serving with an artillery unit somewhere in Pennsylvania. She thought about the world her children would inherit. The rifle steadied against her shoulder. Her breathing slowed. Between heartbeats, she squeezed the trigger. 48. Commander Zektar studied the holographic display with growing unease. Red dots marked confirmed casualties, over 4,000 warriors lost in just 2 weeks. The primitive humans had turned warfare into something the Galactic Council had never encountered. "Commander, we've intercepted communications between the human resistance cells," his intelligence officer reported. "They're using something they call the Ghost Protocol, a network of snipers sharing targeting data in real time." The revelation sent a chill through Zektar's scales. The humans weren't just random defenders. They'd organized, adapted, evolved their tactics with frightening speed. In Buenos Aires, Maria Santos cleaned her rifle in a hidden basement. The former Olympic shooter had found her skills surprisingly transferable to warfare. Around her, other members of her cell studied aerial photographs of alien positions. "They're learning," she told the group. "Started moving in larger groups, keeping shields up constantly. But they still have to eat, still have to sleep." Her spotter, an elderly man who'd fought in the Falklands, nodded. "We hit their supply convoys tonight. No food, no water, no ammunition. Let's see how long their fancy armor lasts." The Ghost Protocol had started as a simple idea. One Canadian sniper began leaving encrypted messages at predetermined locations, sharing intelligence about alien movements and weaknesses. The idea spread like wildfire. Within days, every resistance cell on the planet was connected. They discovered the aliens' shields had a fatal flaw. They were designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles. A bullet moving at 3,000 feet per second punched through them like tissue paper. They learned the Corvins had excellent frontal vision, but poor peripheral awareness. Attack from the sides, stay low, keep moving. They found that alien body armor was strongest at the chest and weakest at the joints. Aim for knees, elbows, necks. In Tokyo, Yamamoto Hiroshi had turned urban sniping into an art form. The former Japanese Special Forces operator had killed over 60 aliens without ever being spotted. He'd written a manual, distributed through the Ghost Protocol, teaching others his techniques. "The alien mind thinks in straight lines," he wrote. "They expect enemies to be at ground level or in buildings. They rarely look up at construction cranes, water towers, or billboard frames. Use the vertical space." His advice saved lives and cost the invaders dearly. Snipers began operating from locations the aliens never thought to check. Suspended from bridges, hidden in industrial equipment, even buried in specially constructed hides that looked like rubble. The Corvins tried to counter with technology. They deployed scanning drones that could detect human heat signatures from a mile away. Within a week, humans were using thermal blankets and underground tunnels to move undetected. They brought in automated sentry guns that could track and fire faster than any living being. Resistance fighters learned to use mirrors and laser pointers to confuse the targeting systems, causing them to waste ammunition on false targets. Every solution the aliens implemented was met with human creativity. It wasn't just military personnel anymore. Engineers designed remote-controlled rifles that could be operated from safety. Chemists created new types of ammunition that burned through alien armor. Computer programmers hacked alien communications, feeding them false intelligence. In the ruins of Detroit, Marcus Johnson had assembled a team that specialized in psychological warfare. They didn't just kill aliens. They made sure the survivors knew fear. "Let one live," he instructed his team. "Always let one go back to tell the others what happened. Fear spreads faster than bullets." His snipers would eliminate entire squads except for one terrified survivor. They'd leave messages written in alien blood. They'd hang Corvin helmets from buildings like trophies. The psychological impact was devastating. Corvin warriors, bred for combat and conditioned to feel no fear, began showing signs of combat stress. They jumped at shadows, fired at empty buildings, refused to leave fortified positions. Some units reported soldiers abandoning their posts, preferring court-martial to another patrol through human streets. Commander Zektar called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The situation had deteriorated beyond anything they'd imagined. His warriors controlled less territory than on the first day of the invasion. "We're not fighting soldiers," his ground commander reported, nursing wounds from a sniper attack that had killed 3 of his staff. "We're fighting an entire species. Their children spot for snipers. Their elderly plant explosives. Even their pets seem trained to alert them to our presence." "Surely they must be running low on ammunition," Zektar said desperately. "Our intelligence suggests otherwise. They've converted factories to produce more. Every human nation is sharing resources. They're teaching each other, learning from each battle. They're getting better while we're getting weaker." The Ghost Protocol had evolved into something more. Snipers began coordinating simultaneous strikes across multiple time zones. 100 aliens would die in the span of a minute, struck down by invisible enemies on different continents. They called it the Hour of Ghosts. At exactly midnight GMT, snipers around the world would fire once, then vanish. The psychological impact on the Corvins was profound. They knew it was coming but couldn't stop it. Their most advanced sensors couldn't locate every hidden shooter. Their fastest reflexes couldn't dodge bullets already in flight. In Mumbai, Raj Patel had turned a hotel into a sniper's paradise. The 60-year-old former police commissioner had recruited a team of aging veterans who'd fought in Kashmir. They were too old for conventional warfare, but perfect for patient, precise killing. "We don't need to run anymore," he told his team. "We just need steady hands and good eyes." They'd turned the hotel into a maze of hidden positions and escape routes. The Corvins had assaulted it 3 times. Each attempt left dozens of aliens dead and the defenders untouched. The old soldiers knew every inch of their territory, every shadow, every angle. The aliens tried negotiation. They broadcast messages promising mercy for those who surrendered. The response was delivered at 2,800 feet per second, dropping the broadcaster mid-sentence. They attempted to use human prisoners as shields. Snipers with match-grade ammunition and decades of experience put bullets through gaps no bigger than playing cards. The human shields walked free. Their captors didn't. In the frozen wastes of Siberia, Nikolai Volkov had turned the environment itself into a weapon. The former Spetsnaz sniper had killed over 80 aliens, but his greatest achievement was teaching others to use the cold. Alien equipment designed for the controlled environments of spaceships failed in extreme temperatures. Plasma weapons lost charge. Armor joints seized up. Meanwhile, humans wrapped in winter gear remained mobile and deadly. "Wait for the blizzards," he instructed his students via encrypted radio. Their thermal vision is useless in a whiteout. But a Russian who grew up in this cold can navigate by instinct. His tactics spread through the Ghost Protocol. Soon, resistance fighters in Canada, Scandinavia, and Alaska were turning winter into their ally. Entire Corvan patrols vanished in snowstorms, picked off one by ghosts in white. The aliens tried to establish fortified zones, areas they could control absolutely. They chose defensible positions, set up overlapping fields of fire, installed sensor networks that could detect a mouse at 100 yards. It didn't matter. In London, James Mitchell had assembled a team of former Special Forces operators from around the Commonwealth. SAS, Australian SASR, Canadian JTF-2, the best soldiers the British Empire had ever produced, united against a common enemy. They specialized in infiltration. While snipers kept the aliens focused on long-range threats, Mitchell's team would penetrate their defenses through sewers, maintenance tunnels, or just the patience to low-crawl for hours through sensor fields. The aliens think in terms of military bases, Mitchell explained to his team. They don't understand that in urban warfare everything is connected. Every building has utilities. Every wall can be breached. Every floor can be a ceiling. His teams would emerge inside alien strongholds, eliminate key personnel, sabotage equipment, and vanish before the Corvans knew they were there. They left playing cards on the bodies. Each team member had their own signature card. The psychological warfare was working. Corvan warriors who'd conquered dozens of worlds were afraid to sleep. They saw snipers in every window, bombs in every pile of trash. Some units refused orders, demanding to return to their ships. Commander Zektar faced a crisis. Half his invasion force was dead or wounded. The survivors were demoralized, paranoid, ineffective. He'd lost more warriors trying to take one primitive planet than in the last 10 conquests combined. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach, his diplomatic advisor suggested carefully. The humans have proven remarkably resilient. The Council will not accept failure, Zektar snarled. But his hearts weren't in it. He'd watched the footage from the ground, seen his best warriors cut down by enemies they never glimpsed, watched proud Corvan soldiers cower in their bunkers, afraid to venture into human streets. The latest intelligence reports made for grim reading. The human resistance wasn't weakening. It was growing stronger. More civilians were taking up arms every day. Children who'd been too young to fight when the invasion began were now old enough to hold rifles steady, and somewhere out there, in the ruins of their cities and the shadows of their buildings, human snipers waited with inhuman patience for the next alien to make a mistake. Sarah Chen marked another tally in her notebook. 63 confirmed kills. She'd stopped thinking of them as individual victories. Each shot was just another step toward freeing her world. Around the globe, thousands of others were doing the same, patient, persistent, deadly. The Galactic Council had sent 10,000 warriors to conquer Earth. They were learning why humans had never needed to leave their planet to become the deadliest species in the galaxy. They'd been practicing on each other for millennia. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the crystal chambers of Zentari Prime. Representatives from 100 conquered worlds watched as Commander Zektar delivered his report. His once proud bearing was broken, his scales dull with exhaustion. 6,000 warriors dead, 2,000 wounded beyond combat capability. The remainder... He paused, struggling with words no Corvan commander had ever spoken. The remainder refused to leave their fortifications. They will not patrol. They will not advance. They cower like prey. The council members rippled with disbelief. The mighty 10th Legion, reduced to hiding from primitives with chemical weapons? This is impossible, thundered the Vorthon representative. The humans have no shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light capability. They are barely more than animals. On the holographic display, Zektar brought up footage from Earth. The council watched in silence as a Corvan patrol moved through an empty street. Without warning, the commander's head snapped back. Then another soldier fell, then another. The remaining warriors scrambled for cover, firing wildly at buildings, hitting nothing. In less than 30 seconds, the entire patrol was eliminated. The humans call them ghosts, Zektar explained. Warriors who strike from distances our soldiers cannot match. They use primitive projectile weapons with precision we never thought possible. They know their world like we know our ships. Every building is a fortress. Every citizen is a potential killer. The Council had seen conquered species resist before. They'd seen desperate last stands and futile guerrilla warfare. But this was different. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. On Earth, the Ghost Protocol had evolved into something unprecedented. What began as snipers sharing intelligence had become a planet-wide military network operating without central command. Farmers in Iowa shared ammunition with soldiers in Germany. Factories in Japan produced rifle scopes for fighters in South Africa. The entire human species had become a single organism with 8 billion cells, all focused on one goal: survival. Sarah Chen stood on a rooftop in Manhattan, but she wasn't alone. Beside her were snipers from Russia, Brazil, Kenya, Pakistan, a dozen nations represented in one team. They'd found each other through the Ghost Protocol, united by shared purpose. Grid reference Alpha 7, her spotter whispered. Alien command post. Looks like they're planning something. Through her scope, Sarah could see Corvin officers studying holographic displays. They were probably planning another decisive assault. The aliens still didn't understand. There was no human army to defeat, no capital to capture. There were just 8 billion individuals who decided that Earth was worth dying for. All teams, this is Ghost Actual, came a voice through her earpiece. The Ghost Protocol had grown organized enough to coordinate major operations. Operation Twilight is a go. Make every shot count. Across 6 continents, 10,000 snipers received the same message. They'd been positioning themselves for weeks, studying patterns, waiting for this moment. As the sun reached its zenith over the Pacific, they acted as one. In Berlin, former GSG-9 operator Hans Müller put a bullet through a Corvin general's eye from 800 meters. The alien command structure in Europe lost its head in an instant. In Cairo, Egyptian army sniper Fatima al-Rashid eliminated an entire communications team, leaving the aliens in North Africa unable to coordinate. In Sydney, Aboriginal hunter Thomas Dreamwalker used a rifle older than he was to drop the commander of the alien supply depot. Without leadership, the panicking Corvins accidentally destroyed their own ammunition reserves. Within 1 hour, the alien invasion force lost most of its command structure, communication network, and supply coordination. But the snipers weren't done. Phase 2 began immediately. While the aliens reeled from the loss of their leaders, hidden caches of fighters emerged. Not snipers this time, but close combat specialists who'd been waiting in concealed positions for weeks. In Seoul, South Korean special forces erupted from underground tunnels directly beneath alien positions. They carried captured plasma weapons and centuries of experience in close-quarters combat. In Mexico City, cartel soldiers who'd spent their lives fighting brutal urban warfare put those skills to use against a common enemy. They knew every tunnel, every hidden route, every ambush point in their territory. In Tel Aviv, Israeli commandos demonstrated why their nation had survived surrounded by enemies for decades. They hit hard, fast, and vanished before the aliens could respond. The Corvins, already demoralized by weeks of sniper attacks, broke entirely. Leaderless and surrounded, they fled to their fortified positions. But even there, they found no safety. Marcus Johnson's psychological warfare teams had spent weeks preparing for this moment. As aliens huddled in their bunkers, speakers hidden throughout the cities began broadcasting. Not propaganda or demands for surrender, just the sound of rifle bolts being worked. Click, clack, click, clack. The sound of death being chambered. Some Corvins snapped entirely, firing at shadows until their weapons overheated. Others simply sat in silence, waiting for the inevitable bullet that would end their torment. Commander Zektar watched the catastrophe unfold from his warship. In a single day, his invincible legion had been shattered. The primitive humans had orchestrated a military operation that would be studied in Galactic Council academies for generations, if any of them survived to tell about it. "Sir," his communications officer spoke hesitantly, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." On the main screen, a human appeared. Not a general or president, just a middle-aged woman in civilian clothes. Sarah Chen had been chosen to speak for her species. "Commander Zektar," she began, her voice calm but carrying steel underneath. "I'm not a diplomat or a leader. I'm a mother, a soldier, and a defender of Earth. I speak for 8 billion humans when I say this. Leave now, and some of you might live." Zektar's pride flared. "You dare threaten the Galactic Council? We could destroy your world from orbit." Sarah's expression didn't change. "You could, but you won't. You came here for resources and slaves, not a dead rock. And if you try, remember, we've had nuclear weapons for almost a century. We've refrained from using them so far. Push us, and we'll turn your landing zones into glass. Your ships in orbit aren't immune either. We've been launching satellites for decades. Some of them aren't what they seem." It wasn't a bluff. Hidden among Earth's commercial satellites were weapons platforms, secretly launched by a dozen nations, primitive by galactic standards, but nuclear weapons didn't need to be sophisticated to be effective. "You have 1 hour to begin withdrawal," Sarah continued. "Any forces remaining after that will be eliminated. No exceptions, no negotiations." The transmission ended. Around the globe, snipers settled into position for what they hoped would be the final phase of the war. In Moscow, Dmitry Volkov watched alien forces through his scope. The grandson of a Stalingrad veteran, he'd grown up on stories of urban warfare. His grandfather had helped stop the Nazi invasion. Now it was his turn. The aliens were pulling back, but slowly, reluctantly. Some units refused to leave their fortifications, too terrified to venture into the open. They had to be convinced. Dmitry's rifle spoke once. A Corvin warrior manning a checkpoint crumpled. The message was clear. Nowhere is safe. Leave or die. In Rio de Janeiro, favela fighters who'd grown up in some of Earth's most dangerous neighborhoods showed the aliens what urban warfare really meant. They moved through their communities like smoke, appearing just long enough to kill before melting back into the maze of streets. The Brazilian government had tried for decades to control the favelas. The aliens lasted less than an hour before retreating to their ships. All across Earth, the pattern repeated. Humans from every walk of life, united in purpose, made it clear that the cost of conquest would be total annihilation. Not just for the invaders, but potentially for both species. The Corvins understood strength. They'd built their empire on it. But they'd never encountered a species where every member was willing to die rather than submit. Where grandfathers taught children to shoot. Where mothers would strap explosives to themselves rather than let invaders near their families. Humanity had spent its entire evolution competing against itself, honing the skills of war to terrible perfection. Now, faced with an external threat, those skills turned outward with devastating effect. Commander Zektar made the only decision he could. "All units, prepare for immediate withdrawal. We're leaving." The retreat was chaos. Terrified Corvin warriors abandoned equipment worth fortunes, focused only on reaching the safety of their dropships. Even then, the snipers didn't relent. Every alien who lingered too long paid the price. Billy Thompson, the Texas rancher, notched his final kill as a dropship lifted off. The alien had paused at the ramp, perhaps taking one last look at the world that had broken his people. Billy's shot took him center mass, sending the warrior tumbling back to Earth. As the last alien ship broke atmosphere, a strange silence fell over the planet. In cities and villages, in mountains and plains, humans emerged from hiding. They were battered, exhausted, but victorious. The Ghost Protocol's final message was simple. They're gone. We won. But the victory came with understanding. Earth was no longer hidden. The galaxy now knew of humanity's existence and capabilities. There would be consequences. Sarah Chen stood on the same rooftop where she'd made her first kill. The city below was scarred but not broken. Humans were already beginning to rebuild, but now they built with new knowledge. The Galactic Council had expected to find primitive savages. Instead, they'd found a species that had turned warfare into science, patience into a weapon, and unity into an unbreakable shield. Within days, humanity's various governments convened an emergency session. The old divisions seemed petty now. They'd tasted what cooperation could achieve. Scientists studied captured alien technology. Military leaders analyzed Corvan tactics. Diplomats prepared for the inevitable return contact, because it would come. The Galactic Council wouldn't forget this humiliation, but when they returned, they'd find humanity ready. No longer divided nations squabbling over resources, but a united species that had learned to reach for the stars. The ghost snipers became legend. Children played games pretending to be Sarah Chen or Marcus Johnson. Military academies studied the Ghost Protocol as a masterpiece of decentralized warfare. Museums displayed the rifles that had saved Earth. But the snipers themselves returned to their lives. Sarah went home to her family. Billy returned to his ranch. Li Wei resumed her police duties. They were ordinary people who'd done extraordinary things when their world needed them. Commander Zektar's report to the Galactic Council ended with a warning that would echo through their halls for generations. Do not return to Earth. The humans are not primitive. They are not weak. They are the apex predators of their world, and they have had thousands of years to perfect the art of killing. They do not conquer the stars because they do not need to. Their world provides everything they require, and they will destroy anyone who tries to take it from them. The Council voted unanimously to quarantine Earth. The blue planet was marked on star charts with the gravest warning in their language. Here be dragons. On Earth, life continued. Farmers returned to their fields. Children returned to school. But now they watched the skies with knowing eyes. They'd beaten back the darkness once. They could do it again. And in the shadows of buildings and the corners of windows, a generation of humans kept their rifles clean and their skills sharp. They knew the galaxy was vast and full of threats, but Earth had 8 billion guardians, 8 billion snipers in waiting, 8 billion reasons why no force in the universe could conquer humanity's home. The Galactic Council had sent 10,000 soldiers to conquer Earth. They'd forgotten one crucial fact. Humans had been preparing for this war since the day they'd learned to throw stones. The aliens had merely been the latest to learn what every conqueror in human history had discovered. Earth doesn't yield. It devours those who try to take it. In the end, the greatest weapon humanity possessed wasn't technology or tactics. It was the simple, unbreakable will to survive, multiplied by 8 billion souls who called Earth home. The stars beckoned, full of wonders and dangers. Humanity would reach for them in time, on their own terms. But first, they would ensure their home was safe. Because now, the galaxy knew the truth. Earth was where angels feared to tread, and demons learned to fear the dark.